Hello and welcome to 2.5 Brains. This is our weekly rally wrap up for week 12 of the fall of 2023. We're going to talk all about it, all the different stuff that happened this week between the Amazing Race, the Amazing Race finale, and Survivor, the penultimate episode. We're going to talk about both of them. I'll bring Jessica for the Amazing Race here at the end, and I'll talk about Survivor here as we get going. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything, like our Facebook page, facebook.com/pavementroadprod, email pavementroadproductions@gmail.com. Subscribe right there on the YouTube channel, share the post, tell your friends, and we'll get started with it here in just a moment. Obviously, Amazing Race, season 36 finale, 35? 35 finale, and then we'll talk about the final episode before the finale of Survivor 45 as we get started here. So let's go ahead and talk about Survivor here as we do start out this episode. And we come back after everybody voted for Julie. She played her idol last week, so obviously they're talking about that, like, hey, what happened? How did our read before we split up? Blah blah blah. And Dee's pretending to be mad at her. She's pretending that she's like, I voted for her too, and but secretly they're still working together, and that's how Julie found out. Obviously, Dee told her. So they got on the water, and Drew and Julie like, hey, we can still work together. It's fine. Let's mend the fences. We'll bury the hatchet, and we'll continue to work together. Both kind of feel like they're lying to each other, but they go with it. We go to the reward challenge, and the reward challenge is won by Austin, and it's basically you have to take a helicopter ride to the sand spit and have a lunch and whatever. And the first person he picks, of course, is D, which I'm like, come on, if you pick D, you're an idiot, because obviously, everybody knows, everybody knows you two are close. Like, don't be throwing away your game like that. Of course, he picks D, doesn't even hesitate. Stupidly. So they just pick one person, and he's like, it's more important of who goes back to camp as opposed to who stays, or who comes along. So he wants to keep Drew and Jake there to keep an eye on Julie, so he brings Katurah along. Because they know that another idol is going to be hidden, and they catch Katurah looking for one earlier. So they know that another idol will be hidden since Julie played hers. So they go on the reward, and they're hanging out talking. And meanwhile, Jake and Drew are supposed to be watching Julie. Julie goes off a couple times, doesn't find anything, but Jake does. And then he finds a clue, and he has to go down basically to the raft and remove part of the raft, and the idol's hidden inside the raft. So he goes, he gets that, and he gets the idol, because now at this point, nobody's there to watch him. So he grabs the idol, and he's got an idol in his pocket ready to go. We go to the immunity challenge, and it comes down to a showdown once again between D and Austin. And they're both talking smack back and forth and everything like that. It's a little bit of a different challenge. They've done similar, but nothing exactly like this. Where they're holding a ball on a plank with their foot. Again, the detail go with their feet. Everything she does with their feet. But it's similar to like the challenge they've done before, where they balance the clay pots on the end of a board. This one is a ball and on a track, sort of, but it similar to that, not exactly the same. It comes down to it. Obviously, once Julie's out, everybody kind of has a sigh of relief. Okay, well, we're good. Julie's gonna be the target, so she's out. She's on immunity, so we'll be good to go. So during the showdown, obviously, they're both talking smack each other back and forth, messing around. Obviously, clearly flirting, and D is pretty solid the whole way. Doesn't really even falter much. And then Austin starts to, and then he recovers. And ultimately, it's D that hangs on and wins the immunity challenge. So she's guaranteed a spot in the final 5. And now we're going to go to tribal council. Now, the whole lead of tribal council is pretty obvious. I hate when they do this. I really, really hate it. Because it's such a trope, and they do it all the time, and it's always predictable when it happens this way. And you're always wondering, well, is it gonna be, maybe it'll be different this time. Maybe it'll be different this time. It's not. Austin and Drew are talking about how, we should get rid of Julie. We're good to go to the end. We're going to go all the way to the end. We're going to win. One of us is going to win. We're going to go to the end. We got a straight shot to the end. Once we get rid of Julie, it'll be the 3 of us against the 2 of them. We'll pick them off. We'll go to the end. We'll win. And even the tribal council, they're talking about, hey, we got one more vote, really, and we're gonna get there. One more vote, and we're cruising to the end. And of course, Julie wants to get rid of Drew. And Jake found the idol. So like, hey, I gotta make a move. I can't go to the end and just, I'm gonna lose if I go to the end. I gotta make a move. I can't just, ride along. So he goes to Julie, like, hey, you wanna make a move, blah, blah, blah. And Julie wants to make a move, and Katura wants to make a move. So it's like, hey, we gotta bring in D into this. And Jake's like, we don't need to bring in D. It'll just be three of us. And if it comes down to it, we have to go to, we have to go to Rocks, or we have to convince them to to flip. We'll be able to convince D or Austin to flip. No big deal. But Julie secretly is still working with D because nobody knows that they're actually faking that they're mad at each other, and they're really actually still working closely together. So Julie decides to go tell D. Now D is torn because D is like, do I go tell Austin, let him know, or do I blindside him? And she goes, the move last time was Austin's decision. Does he want to tell me? He's going to Julie, or does he not? And he decided to go with his heart and tell D because he didn't want to blindside her. And D then again lied to them and said she didn't tell Julie, but she did, and so Julie knew to play her idol and save Julie. And Austin lost his other idol at that time. Now, she's got to decide, should she tell Austin that Drew's the target? Because then it could bounce back on, Drew plays the idol, bounce back on Julie, Julie goes out of the game, and D loses to her close ally. So, ultimately she decides that Austin told her, and that was a smart move. It was an emotional move, and Dee's not going to play an emotional game, so she decides to take her emotion out of it and just go with voting out Drew and not telling Austin. And this is the moment I said, I really feel like Dee's going to win this game. I've kind of felt like for a while she had a good shot to win the game. And anything can happen. We'll talk about it a little bit more. Obviously, the penultimate episodes, we're going to talk about what happened this week, but also more importantly, how's the finale set up? Who's going to win? I've been terrible lately predicting this, but I feel good about these chances, especially with this move. So she doesn't tell Austin, and they go to tribal council. Drew and Austin are going to vote for Julie. Julie's going to vote for Drew. And Jake and Katura allegedly are going to vote for Drew, and then Dee's kind of in the middle, but she's probably allegedly going to vote for Drew. So Jeff says, "Anybody want to play idol? Now's a chance to do so." Austin's amulet that has one. This is the last day you can use it. So he's like, "Well, it's my last day to use it. I don't want a souvenir. I might as well use it." And Jeff's like, "Who are you gonna play it for?" And he looks around and he's like, "I'll play it for me." And he shouldn't have, because the first vote comes down Julie, and then Julie, and then Drew, and then Drew, and then Drew, and then Drew. And Napoleon is voted out 4-2. And comes the fifth member of the jury, sixth member of the jury, whatever it is. And I think he's the sixth member of the jury. And he's voted out right there. So, interesting. They really, really built up Drew and Austin to be very arrogant, being like, "Hey, we're gonna win this game. We're got a great shot. We can see the finish line right there." And then, of course, as always, pride comes before the fall. They were completely blindsided. Drew had saved that power. I feel like he had to use it last episode, so probably is powerless at this point. And I thought Jake's idol was only good for one more vote, but I guess it's got maybe one more on it. I really don't know. I'm not 100% sure what the advantages look like going into the finale, but Drew either way is out of the game with, that saved that power if he still had it. He might as well have used it, but of course, they want to use their vote, make sure they have enough, 4-2 vote or whatever. So Drew doesn't want to dip and do that. And Austin, if Austin would have had an inkling, if either one had any inkling and had their ear to the ground enough, they would have known that that they were going to flip it on Drew, and Drew was the other vote. Even if the thing is, right, I hate that, I'm just going to play for myself because I don't need it. I'm just going to play for myself. Who do you think they're voting for? because Austin should know that if they're voting for somebody, they're not probably not going for Austin. They've been saying before they think Drew's a big threat. They've been saying before they think, and D would come to him and tell him if he's the target. Even if you wouldn't tell him that Drew's the target, she'd come to him and tell him he's the target. And even if they think Drew's only getting 2 votes, might as well cancel out those 2 votes to that idol. So it was really not smart, really not thinking far enough ahead, and they got completely outmaneuvered by Julie and D and the others. So Drew goes out of the game, and now we're down to the final 5, and that's what I want to talk about here, the final 5. Who's going to win? What are the moves they need to make? And what does the finale look like? So I'm going to kind of go through the theory a little bit here of where I think the season's going to go and how it's going to end. Obviously, nobody coming back from the edge of extinction or anything like that this time. It's obviously, as it's been the last few seasons, there's nobody really who's, can really mess with it. The biggest difference between this season and last couple seasons. Last couple seasons, there was really 3 people. Going into the finale, there's 5 people left. There were 2 with a good shot to win, and then a couple others you're like, okay, maybe. This season, there's really, because last season there was, actually, was it 43? It was Jesse and Cody, right, where we kind of run the game, and Carla was there too, right? And for me, when Cody got knocked out the final 6, there's 2, it was just Jesse and Carla, and if they both get knocked out, then, okay, somebody else is going to win. In this case, unless that's kind of what's been the last couple seasons, Jam winning last season, and then, even the 42 and 41, 41, 42, there wasn't any major threat left to win, except for maybe 1 or 2 in the final 5, and not that it necessarily always happens that way. It's kind of exciting when it does happen that way, when the people on the bottom flip on the people on the top and win the game. But it happened a lot last couple seasons, where there would be, you get down to the final 5, and there's really 2 good players. They target each other because they're not aligned, or they flip on each other, and then the one left who has a shot to win the game loses in fire or something else, or gets somehow knocked out, or is otherwise knocked out. So the good news about this season is there's really 3 people I can say with a good shot to win. So I feel like the winner is going to be decent this season, at least. It's been the best season we've had in the 40s, for sure. Even though this last vote was pretty predictable and straightforward, even though there's supposed to be a shock, that it was really laying it on thick that what was going to happen. So it's hard to say who's going to go which order or whatever that, but I'm going to go the way I think it's going to go. I'm going to go the way I think it's going to go. Jake's got his idol. He's going to want to do something with it. I think he's going to be safe 1 more vote. I think the person who's most likely to go next is Katura, because she just, especially if you have, because now D is insulated. She's got Julie, she's got Austin. And getting rid of Drew's really only aligned with Austin. So now Austin has nowhere else to go except with her. Julie has really nowhere else to go except with D. And unless the other 3 are flip it around, and they kind of show in the preview, the other 3 are Julie and Julie and Jake and Katura are gonna flip it around. Doesn't make much sense to do that. I don't think it makes much sense to do that. Maybe it does. I don't know, but I think the next move is to take out Katura. And then I think Katura has the worst odds of getting that, even though she's not a huge threat to win or anything. She hasn't really done much in the game. I think they take her out next because she's just a pawn. And you take out a pawn, and then the controlling players have a shot to get to the end with a pawn, or to take out a pawn, and then they have the game in their own hands. You take out kind of the wild card. Even though Jake's kind of the wild card, the only thing I can see is they throw the votes on Jake and he bounces off on somebody else, which is possible. At that point, you split the votes. If you can. But so I think they just take out Katura because it's easy. Jake has idol, plays his idol, and they throw the votes on Katura. Then I think they go after Julie. I think that's most sense. I think Julie's got a good shot to win, and at that point, you put, Austin in fire against Julie. Austin wins. Say D wins immunity again, brings Jake, and puts Austin in fire against Julie. Austin knocks out Julie, and that's the final 3. Jake's there. He might play. He wanted to make a move with his idol. Really didn't do anything with it. I mean, the best move would have been to do something crazy. Throw the votes on somebody, and now you're the only person you're the only person who casts a vote, right? So now you're the only person who casts a vote and you win. and you decide, yours is the only one that counts. He might have found it too late. He may not have had time to make the move. I don't know, hard to say. But Jake really knew much, so I think he's gonna get through his next vote, unless the idol's dead. If the idol's dead now, then he's gone next, and then it's you just switch spots, Jake and Katura. Depends on which way the idol goes. But then I think Katura's the worst odds to get in the end, or Jake, depending on if the idol's still alive, and then Julie, and then the other one of Jake or Katura, and I think D has the best odds to get in the end. I think Austin has the second best odds to get in the end because he's very connected with D. Obviously, he can still go next. They can still flip on him and get rid of him at any time. And he could still be targeted because he withdrew. But I think D's smart enough. I think she plays smart enough game to be like, okay, look, if I get rid of Austin next, there's nothing keeping Julie from taking me out because she's really the only person. D's maybe the only person who can beat Julie. Maybe Austin can, but D's really the only person who can beat Julie. So if D's smart, what she does, and she's been playing a good game, I think she takes out Katura next, which limits Julie's options. And then Julie can't really go anywhere else because she has to go with, nobody else really wants to work with her at that point because they know she gets in, she wins probably. So you take out Julie at 4 or whatever. He said if you take out Julie at 5, it's fine too, I guess. But D wants to keep if D has Julie's number 1 and she's Austin's number 1, so they're both going to keep you at least one more vote. And then you're in the finals and you're final 4, and you can kind of maneuver from there, however it works out. So that's what I think happens. I think it's got to be Katura or Jake, and then it's going to be Julie at 4, and then third best odds to get in the end will be Jake or Katura, whoever doesn't have, depending on the idol situation. And I think D has the best odds to get in the end because I think she has enough allies that even if she doesn't do much, she can get there. I don't think anybody's going to flip on her. At least not till fire making, and then from there, I think she can maneuver her way to the end. So I think she's the only one I feel very confident making it through the next vote. So, again, maybe I just jinxed her, but that's what I think is going to happen. So I think the worst odds to get in the end is Katura, Jake, if the idol's no good, and then Julie, and then either Katura or Jake, depending on the idol situation, and then Austin and D. So who wins this season? And I've kind of talked about the historical stuff of it, and the history's been kind of rough because the last few seasons haven't been great. But I think here's what I think wins the big at the end. I think Tara is the worst odds of winning, just in general. I mean, she got some friends from because Kendra and Kelly and whoever, maybe Bruce throws her a vote. I don't think he would. Caleb maybe. It's funny because Bruce has been very silent on the jury. It's been mostly Kelly and Caleb doing a lot of talking, a little bit of Kendra, and then Emily was there but didn't have any reaction or anything this past episode. So I think Couture has that outside shot of getting some votes from them, but I just don't think she's done enough. Her whole storyline was I don't like Bruce, and Bruce was gone. She's pretty much been invisible. So I think she has the worst odds of winning and the worst odds of getting in the end. I think Jake has the second worst odds of winning. Again, if something crazy happens on Idol, he makes a big move. He takes out one of the big players. He takes out D or Austin, perhaps, or even Julie. He flips something around on them with his Idol. He has a nice stretch run. He kind of turns into the DK Chillin, the Dean Kowalski. A really strong final episode. It was enough for Dean to get over the edge. I still don't think it will be for Jake either. But he's got that's his path at least. He's got to use his Idol, take out Julie or D, I would say, and then he's got a shot. But he's got to make a big move. He's got to do something like probably last episode, honestly. Taking out Drew was fine, but Drew wasn't as much of a power player as it seemed. He was doing well, he was strategic, but I don't think he was as big of a power player as it seemed. So taking him out, and Jake doesn't get much credit for that move because he was going for Julie. So I think Jake needed to do something on his own, and I don't think he did enough yet to win this game. Still possible, but I don't think he did enough yet. Third is tough. I think third best chance of winning is Austin. I think he can beat. I think if he takes out D and Julie, he wins. I think he for sure wins if he takes out both of them. He could be considered somebody who should roll the coattails. But it's one of those things too. Especially if he's getting blood on his hands. That's kind of what Drew was talking about last week with Emily going out. Like, hey, Emily went out with an Idol, one vote against her. basically got idled out of the game. She goes out, no blood on my hands. Could be the same thing for Austin, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But I just think there's two power players really in the game, and they try to take out, I think what Austin's problem was if they would have got rid of. I mean, he played himself into a corner where he had to get rid of it, flush his own idol that he gave somebody, and then that person, his number one ally, told that person, costing his idol and eventually the next vote his ally. So he got super outplayed. So I think if Julie or Dee are at the end, they easily can tell that story. Austin's done physically, but he's been a little bit emotional, and he hasn't been great. He hasn't been great strategically. And they were talking about how they're another thing that was annoying. They talk about how they're one of the greatest pairs of all time. They're the JT and Steven. They're the Gervais and Tyson. I think it's Jervis. But yeah. They're one of the best pairings of all time. Yeah, but they lost. And again, they were blindsided. Drew is definitely the brains. Austin definitely the brawn of the group, of the pairing. Now that Austin's out of the game, now that Drew's out of the game, I think Austin's going to be kind of lost. And he's going to have to rely on Dee or Julie to kind of get him back through the end. And Julie's not going to work with him because he just try to vote for her twice. Obviously, if she needs to use him for one more vote, she will. But I don't think it's going to happen. So I think what he needs to do is he needs to make a big move, flip on his allies, and then hope that he gets enough credit and they're not mad and bitter. Because I can see Jake beating him, I can see Couture beating him. Based on the fact that he kind of, he's kind of in that, what was it, Owen from 43? He's kind of in that spot. Like he kind of, everything he tried kind of blow up in his face. And in this case, he had to flush his own idol and ended up losing his top ally in the process, which is just, I guess maybe number 2 ally, whatever. Him and Drew were pretty much the top allies for each other. But not great moves there by Austin. I think he just is getting very strategically outmaneuvered. And Dee's ruthless. Dee's, using him as a pawn. I think she does genuinely like him. But, she's like, hey, this is a game, and I'm going to beat him. I'm going to win. And it doesn't matter what he does. I'm going to win. And I think that's kind of what it came down to. I think she's more ruthless. She's got the killer instinct, but he really doesn't. I think that's a big difference. He could still win. Obviously anybody can win. We've seen the worst winners in the last 4 seasons. We've seen some of the worst winners we've ever seen. So I guess it's possible, but I don't see it. Second best odds of winning, I think, is Dee. I think Dee has played a really good game. She's been so insulated. She's had top allies. And the top allies of her opponents are all getting taken out. I mean, when Emily got taken out, really, I felt like really from when Emily got taken out, she was winning the game. Because the only other option Drew and Austin had was to go with Emily instead of the other two. And at the final 5, they split off and they go that way. They split off. They go, instead of going with Julie and Dee, they split off and go with Emily. And then they're in the final 3, and they split off with the final 5. And Drew's like, well, losing Emily was not great, but at least we don't have to get blood on our hands. Yeah, but that was, again, his path to the end. And he had a shot to win with that. With Emily being out of the game, Austin and Drew had to basically rely on Dee, because they weren't going to work with Jake, working with Katura and Julie. Then they're trying to get rid of Julie, so they go to the final 3, and they pick off the other 2 when they get there. Julie's basically the same plan. Go with Austin and Dee, but she has a few more other options, and her side went out. So I think Dee has set herself up so well, played such a good game, that multiple people want to go further with her in the game, and unless they can take her out of fire, I don't think she's going out at 5. It doesn't make sense for her to go out at 5. And then if something happens with fire, then it is what it is. It's a kind of a crapshoot, but she's won more immunities than anybody else. She won 2 immunities. So I think she got a really good game. She played a really good game. I think the best odds of winning is Julie. I think because she's been a target for so long, and she's had agency. Where Jake was the backup vote the whole game, but he didn't have a lot of agency. They decided not to go with him. They decided to he didn't really do much to save himself. They just decided, oh well, Jake's the backup. If somebody plays an idol, that person doesn't play an idol. so Jake doesn't get voted out because that person, the primary target, is taken out. Or something else happens, they decide to flip it instead and just use Jake's vote. Julie has had it kind of the opposite of that. They've been targeting her, trying to blindside her, but she's had enough, she's had a close ally tell her what's going on. She's played idle, she's been protected, she's made, she's flipped the vote on it, that kind of thing. So I think Julie has played a good enough game where if she gets to the end, she was the target, and if she manages to sneak through to the end, I think she's got a great story to tell. And the whole time we're hearing what a great player she is, like how much everybody likes her. Usually that player, the mom, usually gets eviscerated at the end, and how could you vote me out, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it won't be the case in this case. I don't know. It seems like Julie probably won't win, but I think the way they're setting it up and the way the game has gone since the final 8 on, when they decided to flip on Julie, she saved herself a couple times. She's played idle. She's made a couple flashy moves. And I think really being the underdog and the mom, I think is gonna carry her to the end if she gets there. I don't think she can get there, but she could. And I think Julie beats anybody. Bottom line, I think Julie beats anybody. I think Julie gets there, she beats anybody. I think D beats anybody but Julie. And then Austin and Jake have a shot as well. I think Katura's pretty much drawing dead, but again, anything can happen. Anything can happen. So that's my prediction. That's what I think is going to happen. I think the good thing is there's 3 players who played this game. There's 3 players left in the game who I think are good players who have a shot. And then from there, who knows? But it said the good thing is that the 4 of them were in the final 5 have been really, really interesting. If Katura or Jake would have won out this past week, the final 3 before in the finals, they've been really interesting. But it obviously didn't happen in this case. But again, unlike previous seasons where there's really only 1 or 2 good players around at the end. Last season, right? I mean, Jam wasn't that good. He just, was likable and held on. Carolyn was playing a decent game, but nobody took her seriously. Heidi came out strong at the end, but again, wasn't doing a whole heck of a lot. Carson was doing well, but he lost the fire, so he wasn't there. Right? And then Jamie, whatever, right? So it's like there was really only 1 player I could really see winning last season. And that person got knocked out of fire. Because that happens a lot to that person. The person gets knocked out of fire a lot. 43, same idea, right? I mean, there was really 2 players who had a good shot to win. They were targeting each other, and then they go out 5-4. All right? So either the 2 best players have to stick together until at least the final 4, or there needs to be 3 good players, so that way, you can have a good winner. I think for the first time in the 40s, since season 40, I think we'll have a good winner this season. I think it's gonna be D, most likely, or Julie, or Austin. But I think my money's on D. I don't think again, I usually curse them and whatever, but she's playing a very good game, and like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if it's her or Julie at this point. But I think my money's on D. So we'll see. We'll see how the finale goes. I'm looking forward to it, and we will be back after Christmas to talk about the Survivor finale. Jessica will be back for that one, and we'll go over that, and we'll see how things turned out. Then look ahead to season 46. Now let's go ahead and shift gears. I'll bring in Jessica for the Amazing Race finale recap. Stay tuned. And we're back, and welcome to the show, Jessica. Jessica, how you doing?
Oh, I'm great. How are you?
I'm not too bad, not too bad. We're going to talk about the Amazing Race finale. Are you ready to talk about it?
I suppose.
Yes, me too. So, obviously, the final 3 teams that were in the finale running to the pit stop were Corey and Rob, Garrett and Joel, and Greg and John. Right?
Yes.
All right. Let's go ahead and take it away. Tell us how it started.
So from Dublin to Ireland. I'm pretty sure they were all on the same flight, if I remember correctly.
From Dublin to Seattle.
Or Seattle. Oh, my gosh. Dublin, Ireland.
Yes.
To Seattle. Thank you.
Seattle,
yes.
Washington.
Huh?
Seattle, Washington.
Yes. Walla Walla, Washington. Yes. As always, some of them, I think, Corey grew up in Vancouver or lived in Vancouver for a while, and Greg and John were in Seattle for like a month in college, so hopefully that plays to them knowing where they're going.
probably doesn't, but you never know.
No. We didn't hear it that much this season, which I appreciate.
Yes.
I love cheese. Of course I can make cheese.
Yes. I love riding a bike, so I can obviously put together an airplane.
Exactly. But yes. So on the same flight, get to Seattle, and they find out that it is a scramble. So, well, at the Space Needle. They have to go to the Space Needle, go up all the way to the top. Each team member takes turns going on top to get a clue. They basically both get the same clue, but they have to go one at a time. You know, they got to pick the number for who goes one. From there, it took them to it's like a little garden or whatnot outside of the Space Needle, and that's what they found out it was a scramble.
Yeah. So the scramble's really interesting. They've only done it a couple times. I think only like once, maybe last year, or maybe once ever, or twice ever. It was a premiere of last season. And I really like it, and it's definitely different to do in a finale, but I didn't hate it.
No, it was fun. It was fine. Something.
Yeah, obviously maybe didn't love how it turned out, but I don't mind the idea.
No, I don't mind the idea.
I like that the best part of the scramble is you don't know where the teams are. You have no idea. So you have to just do your best, and it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So what were the three parts of that?
So it was grunge, grab, or glass.
And glass, because technically they do them all.
And glass, yeah. That's right. Sorry.
Yep.
Whatever.
And there was really wasn't a roadblock. It was just all three members.
No, it was just all three. Yeah.
Yeah, they did all three. Perfect. So what were they and what they end up being?
So grunge, they have to be a roadie for a grunge band and basically put together their equipment on stage, plug everything in, make sure everything is in working order. Grab, both had to swing from a high trapeze and get caught by someone else on the other side. You know, link arms. They had to put their legs over the trapeze, put their arms out so that they could grab onto the other person on the other side.
Yep.
And then glass, they had to...
And thankfully it wasn't their partner they go. This was a professional.
Oh, God, no. Yes, it was a professional they had to grab onto. And glass was to make basically a globe out of blowing glass.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and that was just strategic part to doing it in whatever order. But who did well, who struggled? Different teams are different.
Well, yeah. So Greg and John really struggled with the glass. Joel and Garrett got through it quicker. With grab, everybody kind of struggled except for Corey. And that, well, Joel and Garrett. Greg and John didn't struggle with that one. Obviously, they're more flexible. The one did.
I don't remember which one.
John. I don't remember which one's which. We had it figured out, and I can't remember. One of the boys struggled with that one. They had to do it a couple times. Obviously, Joel and Garrett struggled with that one because flexibility and bending and everything. Corey did well, but his dad took a little bit longer to get that done. Grunge, again, Greg and John struggled with that. They couldn't find the one board because they didn't turn the top over. They couldn't find the cords to plug in the power sources. And they were just kind of, I would say, talking out loud about it. And at that point, Corey and Rob were there trying to not really give them too many clues. Obviously, it's last, leg. You can't do that.
Can't help anybody out at that point. No way.
But I would guess say surprisingly, Joel and Garrett did very well with that one. They got that one done pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. And so all three teams get their clues, and it seemed like it was Garrett and Joel were the first to finish their scramble, wasn't it?
Yes, they were. Yeah, Garrett and Joel were the first ones.
Yeah.
Because in the order that they went was glass, grunge, and then grab.
Right.
And that was the exact same for Greg and John, but Rob and Corey did grab, grunge, and then glass.
Yeah, right, correct.
Yes.
All right, so after they're done with the scramble, then what happened?
So then they had to, trying to remember quickly. They got their clue.
Yeah, it was an airplane.
Oh yeah, the airplane. They put the airplane together, gave them an address to go to, and they had to put together the puzzle of what they did per each leg and put it in order they're all on kayaks. They had to stack it onto towers, if you will.
Yeah, so it's a cumulative test, the final challenge. It's at an airfield, and basically what they're doing is they're taking kayaks, and some are yellow, some are red. Yellow are detours, red are roadblocks, and they have to do them. The ones that are they're named, the name of the task,
right?
And they had to put them in order they did them.
Yes.
The rest for the final part. And kayaks are pretty heavy. They have to pick them up, put them on one of 3 shelves, basically.
Right.
On a throughout an airfield, there's 3 sections. Obviously, there's one for each team.
Right.
And that was it. They do it cumulatively. So in that case, Garrett and Joel got there first.
They did.
And then Greg and John.
Yep.
And then Corey and Rob were the last to get there because they kind of started struggling with the last part, which was the glass blowing. I think it was the part that really...
They did. I mean, I don't think it took as long as it kind of was seeming, but...
Yeah, I think the only real difference was...
Once they actually got the thing to blow and, get the bubble, they got it on the first try.
Yeah.
They didn't have to redo it from that point, but just to get into it took them a little bit longer.
Right, and I think the big thing was different teams struggled with different stuff. Greg and John did really bad on the glass blowing. They did okay. I think they might have been the better. They struggled with the grunge and probably did their best on the trapeze. And they didn't do it in the first try. They probably did better than the other teams combined.
One did it on the first try. The other did not.
Right, and then the other teams had at least one player do multiple times, and then so Greg and John cumulatively was the fastest.
All the teams had to do it multiple times, though.
Right. No, I know. I'm saying
cumulatively.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it took them because it took them the longest on the glass blowing. It took them.
No, I mean saying accumulated on the
trapeze.
Yeah. It took them the least amount of time.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it took them long on and then I kind of think Garrett and Joel were maybe the best team on the scramble.
They were.
I mean, obviously it makes sense because they finished first.
The trapeze, but yeah, I mean they definitely were because they got everything done pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, what was it, Garrett, the beard? He said he has a roadie Weezer jacket at home.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So he was a roadie, but that's a joke. But yeah, they did really well in the scramble.
For sure. So they got there first, and they had to move the kayaks, and they, I felt good about this because I'm like they wrote everything down. Mm-hmm. They, been keeping pretty good notes, and they had everything in really good shape, had it in pretty good order, except they had one switched.
Yeah, they had 2 that were in wrong spots because one person said, I think so, and the other person said, no, it's not at this one, and then that's kind of where it stopped. They messed up on the... bird's eye view and above it all.
Right. So, and above it all was the...
That was the plane, the glider.
The glider. And the bird's eye view was the tight roping across the first leg.
Right.
Yeah. And they switched those.
Yes.
And... they couldn't figure it out.
Nope.
And then Greg and John showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And they figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
And ran to the pit stop.
Mm-hmm.
That was the difference.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't that far behind them, though.
Correct.
They figured it out pretty quickly, and it was definitely more of a race to the pit stop-ish, but yeah.
It was a very, very competitive, very good finale. Regardless of who you thought should have won or whatever. Mm-hmm. It was a very good finale. It was very competitive. All 3 teams were in it most of the way. I mean, Corey and Rob started falling out of it near the end of the scramble.
Yeah.
But for the most part, all 3 teams had a legitimate shot to win, and it was just came down to really if Greg and because Greg and John were starting to gain on them, starting to gain on Garrett and Joel, and if Garrett and Joel had fixed their mistake on the first or second, third time they did it, they probably because again it gets into it when you get to the cumulative test. You get one wrong, or in this case 2 because they're matching, right? Mm-hmm. You start taking ones apart that are right. And now you're all messed up.
Also, though, Rob and Corey got lost on the way there.
That's true,
They were not far behind.
That's true.
We also do not know what the time gap is.
True.
So I can't definitively agree with everything because we don't know what the time gaps were. Rob and Corey could have been on their way, and then Corey started saying, well, we've lost the directions that I have written down, and we're not really sure. So, if they didn't get lost, who knows what happens.
True, no, absolutely. You're absolutely right. So I think that actually makes the most sense. It seemed like they were really leaving last, but not that far.
They could have been in first, but it didn't say until who got there
Sure.
in what order because they wanted to keep it suspenseful.
Yeah, and I said I feel like they were. I feel like they were pretty close. I do think probably they were the last, but the fact that they leaving the scramble, but the fact that they got lost, they arrived last definitively.
They arrived last definitively, but I can't say that they were last because the guys were still at Grunge and that glass blowing was right by Grunge. They did the furthest one first. Everybody did the furthest one last. So from going to Grunge to getting to the grab, who knows how long it took them versus them starting it. Like Rob and Corey took longer. They needed to be shown again, but once they actually got it, it didn't take them that long.
And I think last season they did it, the scramble, and the team, I think it was the twins. Right, Molly and...
They didn't do a scramble last season?
The first episode last season.
First episode of last season?
Yeah.
Okay,
the premiere.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It was Molly and, what was her name? The twins?
Emily,
yes. The first episode, I think it was them. It might have been something else, but they said they're probably going to have the pit stop be in a very scenic place. Mm-hmm. So they did this scramble intending to end the scramble where they anticipated the nicest part of the town of the city would be, and therefore that would be the pit stop, right? And I think they started in Germany that season, the first time they started out of the U.S. Mm-hmm. And they were right. Yeah. In this case, I think I didn't see the map, but I think it ended. I think the pit stop was right past. It was past Grab. I think it was like kind of out that way past Grab.
It doesn't matter because they didn't put the kayaks together anywhere near there.
No, I know, but I think it was kind of kept. I think we went to Grab, we went past Grab, kept going. Like I think it was like I don't think it was in the between the three of them. I think it was where Grab, but I think it was further out.
I have no idea. I can't say.
I can't say.
We didn't see it, so
I can't say either way either. But what I'm thinking is, I think it was because they would have if they would have driven past it. I feel like they would have been like, okay, this seems familiar. It would maybe trigger something like, hey, this seems we were just near here. So I think what they did is I think what I'm saying is I think what hurt them was going out to Grab first and then coming back, and they probably actually should have, because all the other teams got there first after going to Grab last. They got to the final test, quicker. And I feel like maybe that's why. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know for sure. There's no way to know for sure. But maybe that's why. Trying to give, Corey and Rob maybe some of the benefit of the doubt that they tried to go the furthest one first, but maybe the furthest one was actually the closest to the pit stop. We don't really know. It makes sense because it was kind of out of the way. So maybe
they had to hop on a throughway. I don't think it was anywhere near where they were.
Where any of them were.
No. Yeah.
So, but was it that way or was it a different way? I don't know.
We have no idea.
Yeah. So it's because like a lot of times you think maybe it's gonna be in the center of this town.
Yeah.
The pit stop, whatever. But like you said, it wasn't in that town. It was out of the way. So maybe they're driving to the furthest one first. Didn't really save them any time because they came back to the middle and then had to go somewhere farther away anyways. Whereas the other teams, they went to what was closest. And then they didn't have to worry about saving time because they all had to drive further anyways. I don't know. Just something I'm thinking about. Maybe that was part of what went into it. I don't know. But they got lost, bottom line. And
it doesn't matter. They got lost. We have no idea. Don't know how long it was, which direction.
Right.
Space Needle's all I know there, or if you go into like a sports arena.
Yeah.
Besides that, I don't know what this castle is, and I don't think any of them would have known either.
No.
So
yeah.
And there was really no way to tell where to go.
No,
and
for sure.
We don't know where they went. We have no idea.
For sure.
They got lost.
They got lost.
They all asked for directions. They got lost. It was a throughway, so they don't know.
Yeah, it was a rough leg to rough leg to get lost.
Yeah.
If you're gonna get lost, definitely don't want to do it in the last leg to win the whole thing. So, regardless how they finished, whatever, they got there after everybody else had already arrived, and then they did the task going to the end. But that was really, I guess my question was what cost Rob and Corey.
Can't really tell because they don't show it to you. They never show it to you on the show, actually. I mean, getting lost, yes, but you said, were they not close to where they needed to be and the other ones were? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like though getting lost was kind of what did them in.
I mean,
right?
it's definitely hard but like I said, we don't know who left what task, the last task first.
Yeah, that's how it is, obviously.
But Joel and Garrett obviously left first and got there, but who knows between the other two.
Yeah, and where they all play, something like that. I think just it came down to it. I think there was 3 solid teams, and when
And I think Greg and John got lost though too, because Joel and Garrett and Greg and John were at the same task, the very same last task.
True.
And they got there with plenty of time to almost finish the kayaks before the boys got there.
Yeah, no, they did finish.
So I'm pretty sure. I think they were
Very
almost
close.
finished.
Very close, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure the boys also got lost.
Yeah, I mean, and
So-
I don't know. Yeah, because they did leave a little bit. You're right, because they did the
The
trapeze one.
Yeah.
And they left
The one
not
took
too
a little
far
bit.
ahead.
No. I don't think it was that far ahead, but I mean, because the one did it right away and the other one took a little longer, but...
Yeah, and then they got there. They said, you're right, they had most of the kayaks done before Greg and John showed up. Greg and John show up, and then they had to just go. And so I think...
If Joel and Garrett communicated and would have just realized
Realized
those
their
two were
mistake.
wrong, it would have been a whole different ending.
Absolutely. And I think the bottom line is Corey and Rob got lost. I think that is a big reason why they just didn't get there.
They got pretty lost, I'm sure, yeah.
And then the only real difference, so they were out of it by that point, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it came down to, Greg and John and Garrett and Joel. And I think the biggest difference was Greg and John really didn't mess up the kayaks once, where Garrett and Joel were really switching one away.
Yep.
And then they couldn't figure out which one, they...
Luckily, though, they didn't really mess them up
too much. No, thankfully. They pretty much would move one at a time. They didn't...
I don't even think they moved that many.
No,
they moved a couple up because they thought it being down lower was the problem.
Yeah, that's right.
I think they switched 2 and then put them back, and then they realized it was the one because they really didn't move stuff around that often.
Yeah, it was...
They just couldn't figure it out.
It was kind of hard to tell with the edit, too, how much they moved. But
right.
I guess what I'm saying is they didn't, completely take it apart and redo it.
No, they didn't.
Like some teams do, which is, always a mistake.
Right.
But the only difference was that last task... They got there first, and they basically finished it first, but they had one thing wrong, and if they would have figured out that one thing, they win the race.
But yes.
One pair or whatever I'll call
Right.
it. But if you can figure that out, you win.
Yep.
And it's over. But they got there first, pretty much finished it first, didn't get it right, and in the meantime of trying to figure out what they did wrong, Greg and John showed up, got it right in the first try, or at least as far as editing and whatever, and got out of there.
I mean, they probably did get on the first try.
Probably.
They would have shown it if they didn't.
Yeah, and that was it. Got it done, right in the end, and your winners are Greg and John. So it was, they said, I think Greg and John played the most consistent. They had, I think, overall the best race. They won the most legs of anybody. And they kind of, they didn't maybe peak at the right time. They peaked kind of more towards the middle, but there was no other real dominant team. And I think that's to the credit of the race this season. It helped Greg and John because nobody else was that dominant. But it was anybody's game. You could, there was no bozo team who made it to the end this season.
Yeah.
Who you're like, oh, hey, they have no chance. Everybody, all 3 of them going into it, you could have, if you had Vegas odds, it would probably all of them would have been in 20%, 20 to 40% chance to win.
Yeah.
Because they all were decent.
Yeah.
And it just came down to a couple of mistakes, and they got passed up, and that was it. So overall, congratulations to Greg and John. They did a good job. Not everybody can be the Holdernesses. But it was, I know you're a little disappointed in how it ended, but it was a fun season. I said, there's some very good teams, very fun teams. I said to you, I'd like to see another returning player season. Where players get a redemption chance to come back and do it like you did one time where all the teams come back and didn't win, and see what happens, and see who can do it and do it. We can do it from the last, do it from the 30s. Everybody who competed in the 30s, that would be fun. But the next season is in the can, ready to go. So that'll be airing, I believe, in February, and so it'll probably be the same Survivor, Amazing Race, 90 minutes each. Again, as those look like for Survivor 46, and Amazing Race 36.
Yeah.
What else?
Nothing. February's going to be busy, and we'll see about recording.
We have nothing going on in February. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, you might be doing this on your own, dude.
I may not be doing it at all. We'll have to figure it out. But that's not it's not. I'm not putting what I'm saying is the shows will be back in February. Whether this show will be back, we're recapping them, is certainly up in the air. It's certainly not a sure thing by any stretch of the imagination. So, but hopefully we have some fun shows to watch at that time, because we'll be having things going on that will require us to be home, and we'll go from there. So
I'll be sleeping when I can.
Yeah, certainly I will be as well. Certainly. So, anything else? Any last thoughts on the season?
No, you probably don't want to hear my thoughts on the season.
Go ahead, tell me.
No, it's fine. It's fine that they won, but also they were tanking at the end. They got lucky to win this one.
Certainly.
Because if Joel and Garrett didn't mess up the way they did, like, I was so hoping that it was going to be them.
Absolutely. And I said we were pulling for Rob and Corey the whole time.
Yeah.
And then when they kind of fell off, I was like, all right, maybe Joel and Garrett will do it. And I said it was just that mistake. That was it. I mean, it's how, they ran the best. They honestly ran the best leg. Garrett and Joel ran the best 100%. Final leg.
Yep.
They just messed up one thing, and they weren't that far ahead where the mistake didn't cost them. The mistake cost them.
I mean,
Greg and John were close enough.
Greg and John did not do nearly a good leg that episode, or the last probably 4 episodes.
Yeah. They held on. They stayed in it. And
I don't. Other people messed up more than they did.
Certainly, that's it. That's all. I mean,
that's all it takes. But
steady.
I can't give credit to teams like, they didn't excel. They didn't keep themselves in all the time, because other people just messed up way more than they did at times.
That's it. And then again, coming out to the end, and they were steady. I mean, they didn't blow anybody away. They didn't crush the final leg.
Right.
They were good enough, and they waited for the opportunity. Basically, I mean, not that you can do that, but the opportunity came along to make one more better decision, and that was it. They communicated great. They didn't fight at all. And I think the biggest thing is being, they really didn't. I mean, they may have bickered here and there, but we've seen huge blowouts in Amazing Race, and this was not. They didn't have any of those. And I think all the teams in the final 3 communicated pretty well. I mean, that's why it was such a competitive final leg.
Right.
The last 2 teams who really had any real bickering or fighting went out 4th and 5th. The final, that's the key. I mean, it's like prerequisite to be on the race. You have to be able to communicate well.
Right.
And all 3 teams did that. All 3 teams did well in most of the challenges. All 3 teams were good at a lot of things. And it came down to, at the end, one mistake really by Garrett and Joel. And Greg and John were close enough where they could overcome it. They could overtake them on that after they made that mistake. I think the key to the race is obviously communicating is prerequisite, but to be able to win the race, I think it's important to have very well-rounded people who have a lot of different skill sets. Like even though they've never won, my poster child for this is Corey and Tyler. Yeah. Tyler and Corey. Yeah. They're good at everything. They haven't never won the race, but they finished in the top 3 both times. And these guys, I mean, they were smart. Greg and John, they were smart. They obviously were, athletic enough. They weren't, bodybuilders by any means, but they were track people. Track. They could, they had endurance. And they didn't get tired. They didn't get worn out.
Right.
Those kinds. They had good cardio. They were not that, and that's a huge thing either. But they were good at communicating. They were good with directions. They were, good at reading their clue and following the step-by-step instructions on the clue. They were good at seeing somebody doing a task, and just doing it. They weren't, and they spoke French. There's things that came up that were helpful.
Yeah. And
they were very well-rounded people in general.
Well-rounded. Athletics does not win any of this.
No, but
because none of this, besides the trapeze thing, none of the other stuff had anything to do with it.
Yeah.
So it's like you said, well-rounded. So people that have skills, people that can do manual labor or can see and understand, they can follow directions well, stuff like that. Like,
Yeah, I feel like, you have teams like who are like college students, and they don't necessarily do as well because they just have been in college for life, been in school for life. And then people who are like a little bit older, you don't want to be, like mom and dad teams can do well. The only problem is they usually run out of steam because they're not as, they're not the cardio or whatever to keep up with it, and they get tired over the course of a race.
I mean, Steve was the only one that really started to pitter out towards the end.
Yeah.
But the rest of the guys did decently fine. And even with, like, Joel and Garrett, I would have figured that they would have gotten exhausted, and they didn't.
They really didn't, no.
I mean, they were military, but they're not in the best shape anymore. But they still didn't. Athletics did nothing to hurt them.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess my point is that, if you have the cardio and you have the, the stamina, it can help.
You can overrun another team if you need to. That helps.
Yeah, and I think stamina and things like that can be helpful. But regardless, all that being said, I just think bottom line is they were good, well-rounded people, and they were, there's enough. They had enough that they were able to do enough skills. A lot of times the teams who do the best are the older teams because they know. They have enough life lessons. They've done enough in their lives to be able to do that. And I think Greg and John were similar in that way. They had enough. You're not old, but they're not in college anymore. They've had careers. They're in IT, so they're used to problem solving, those kinds of things. And I think a lot of those skills work in their benefit. I would not necessarily. I mean, I guess I did predict they were going to win, but it's not because they were the best team by a lot.
Right.
It was 3 very good teams who all did really well. I said I'd love to see a returning player season, even if you go for the most recent seasons, last 5 seasons, because a lot of teams who, fell a little short, really, with a second chance, who knows how they would do, And I haven't done a returning player season in a while. I think it'd be fun to see. They had one recently that was all teams who had played before and hadn't won, and I think it'd be interesting to see what they learned from their first time. And see how they overcome it for a second time out. So, either way, I think it was a fun season. We'll see how the next season goes. It's already, I guess, filmed, ready to go. So, we shall see. But more to come after the Survivor finale. We'll talk about that soon, and kind of go from there. And then from the Survivor finale, we'll look into what's next for this show and going forward. So, we'll have some decisions to make in the next. Few weeks to month or so.
I respect you.
I appreciate that, Siri. I appreciate that very much. Siri tells us to shut up and go home. So, anything else, Jessica?
No.
Anything else in this season or anything else that you want to mention as a whole?
No, I'm good.
I know you're a little disappointed on the ending, but I think it's overall a very fun season. I thought it was a really good season.
It was.
Cool. Be sure to subscribe to miss anything. You can look at our Facebook page, facebook.com/Pavement Road Prod. Email pavementroadproductions@gmail.com to share your thoughts. Subscribe right there on the YouTube channel. You can comment right in the video there and let us know what you think. I think that's it for now. We'll be back here shortly, obviously, right after Christmas for the Survivor finale, and then we will go from there. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nope.
Cool. Well, I got nothing else for you because the tribe has spoken.
Safe travels.